Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast, the Project Investigation Collaboration, brought to you by the Veritas Project. And as always, we're here with our gracious host and the founder of the Veritas Project, Robert Curtis.
Hello.
And I'm lead investigator, Investigator Todd Boyer. And welcome to the podcast, everybody.
Yeah, welcome aboard, everybody.
Oh, so we've had a video of something that we just touched on in our last podcast. Go absolutely nuts on TikTok.
Exploded on TikTok. There was a short of just an anecdote that
of a rabbit hole that we went down for a moment.
Just something that we do. We mentioned silly things and go on about our business. And for some reason, that one got a lot of traction. Like 60,000
thousand views.
So
like 300 comments, 4,000 likes. It's just in days, in a matter of days.
Yeah.
So we have that going on in local news.
Yeah. Also, the YouTube people up here watching got to see our new intro. New fabulous
Bob posted the new intro. So everybody will get to see that starting on Monday. That will be the new intro to the
It hasn't
podcast.
happened yet, but it was on this video. You guys just saw it right there.
So we also added a new member to the team.
Yeah.
And that person doesn't even know they're a new member yet. I haven't told them. But Robin, welcome to the team.
Yay.
You do so much for us as far as modding for us and everything else that Bob and I talked, and you are now a member of the Veritas Project. So, welcome.
Yay. It comes with all the rights and privileges. So
Yep.
all this.
All this. Someday, everything the light touches will be yours. So welcome to the team, Robin.
Yay.
So, anything else in local news?
I don't know. It's been crazy.
Other than the fact that our numbers completely stopped.
Well, not really, because we picked up 80 followers, but we lost almost 80 followers.
Yeah. So basically, Bob promoted the podcast a long time ago.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they promoted the shit out of it in like the Philippines.
Yeah.
So we have like a bunch of subscribers from Thailand and the Philippines and whatnot. So now those accounts are starting to fall off, but we are only 260 something away
from
or 250 something away
from 10K.
From 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is they're purging those accounts
right
as fast as we're gaining subscribers. So we gained 80 but lost 80 bots.
Right.
So we are stuck in limbo right now.
You know, if you look at the chart, we gain followers, like it's steady going up, but the number doesn't change because we're gaining followers at the same rate that they're deleting accounts from these other bots. So.
They would have to do it right before we hit 10K.
Yeah, well, they do it on purpose.
Go figure.
They do it on purpose to hold your numbers down. But we know the truth because our watch hours are staying right at 400,
which is where we need to be.
Right where we need to be is 400 watch hours.
Minimum, though. So we need to get more people, get them watch hours up.
Yeah.
So
this is going to do it, man, because this is a
hot topic, apparently.
Hot topic right now.
So today we're going to talk about the geomagnetic reversal.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know what it is, it's when the poles shift, the magnetic poles move. They have been moving, and Bob actually showed a graph or a picture of how much they have been moving.
Put it in here again. Boop,
right there. Of how much they've actually been moving over the past few years. And they do move a little in general, and they move around, but it literally went zigzag, 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 whoop.
Yeah. And now it moves a lot.
A lot. And this could be, according to some of the videos that I watched today, could be the end of the world.
Could be catastrophic.
Could be absolutely catastrophic. We're talking the stuff like Yellowstone erupting, major volcano eruptions.
What people don't know is that the core of the planet is a lot of molten metals. And it moves, as the Earth turns, the molten core also moves.
Right.
But it's independent of the rotation of the Earth. Mm-hmm. So it speeds up and slows down, it gets hotter, it gets colder, and this is what we're talking about. It's not like the planet is just going to flip. It's the core inside the planet will change its position, and then because of that, the Earth will turn on its axis because the weight of it will move.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about. And people are like, "Oh, this is all conspiracy theory. How would you know?" Like, well, it's measurable. We can see.
Yep.
There used to be an expedition every year, and they would measure the magnetic north and put a red flagpole in the North Pole where the pole was. And then in the 70s, they went up there and they noticed, like, well, it's moved like 100 yards. And then the next year, they're like, well, it's moved almost a mile.
Right.
And then now, in the 80s and 90s, it moved a couple miles. Well, now it moves hundreds of miles every year. And now it's in the middle of the ocean. It's almost made it to Russia. So at that rate, it's just getting faster and faster and faster. And then the pole's going to flip.
And they are saying this could happen in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So, hate to bring that bummer to you, but...
Right.
So, the last one actually happened 780,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And it has happened multiple times throughout the history of the planet.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is nothing new.
Right.
So, it's a natural, gradual process, not a sudden event, but reversals are recorded in magnetic minerals found in lava and ocean sediment. And the magnetic stripes serve as a way to measure them and to record the poles reverse, because as the magma comes out, the metal moves with the magnetic fields compared to the rock. It
comes out and it points in the direction of the strongest magnetism, basically. And they're saying that 780,000 years ago, it used to point that way. And now it's pointing this way because the new magnetic north is moved. So that's what they're saying.
Right. And because now this isn't something that the poles itself are going to destroy everything,
right?
But it's going to have a severe effect on everything.
Yeah.
Because it's going to change the way that the radiation hits us from the sun. It's going to change the pull on the mountains and the valleys and everything, because the magnetic field pulls on everything.
Yeah.
And I did actually see something. So how we always discuss that, like, most scientific things are theories. Mm-hmm. I just saw something, speaking of this, it popped into my brain. Rabbit hole. First rabbit hole of the night. They are saying that they think that gravity and electricity are the same thing.
Okay.
So that's a new discovery that we're going to have to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
At some point. So, but like I said, the process doesn't destroy the Earth or cause any mass extinction event on its own, but affects the magnetism, the way the Earth is shielded, and its distinct magnetic poles wandering. So what were you telling me earlier about their the picture that you saw of the possibility?
Oh, yeah. So the scientists got together and they ran through all of these large module AIs and did the calculation, the best calculation of what the outcome of the flip will look like. And now the equator runs right through South America and up north towards like the East Coast. And basically us here in the Midwest will get a lot colder in our climate, and California is completely done.
Like, it'll be the new North Pole.
Yeah, California will be the new Antarctica, basically. Yeah. So it'll...
Or new South Pole,
yeah. Yeah, just off the coast of California will be the new South Pole. And California and inland up to about Colorado will be the ice shield. And then the Rockies are going to protect all of us nice people here in the Midwest, because the ice wall will start there. And then we will be like northern Russia's climate.
Right.
And part of Canada, where the frost line is, that'll be the Midwest now. And then the East Coast of America will be warmer, but basically people in South America won't notice much of a difference, other than that the sun rises in the south and sets in the north now.
It's scary. It's scary to think about.
But all that ice from Antarctica and the North Pole and all of the ice that's on those polar packs will melt, basically, because that will be the equator now.
Right.
And then it's going to have to shift and then refreeze in its new location. So basically, the new poles will be the new frost lines, basically.
Right.
Okay.
So the Earth magnetic field is actually generated by the geodynamo, which is like Bob said, it's the liquid core moving around.
Right.
Now the outer core is mostly composed of molten iron and nickel, and convection currents in the core drive magnetic field generation. And the Coriolis effect from Earth's rotation organizes the magnetic field lines.
Right.
So the Earth actually rotating around that liquid is what generates. So good example, if you ever wrap copper coils, right, and then you run a magnet through them, or you spin a magnet through it sends magnetism throughout those coils.
Right.
So it generates electricity. That's kind of how the core works.
We have what's called the Van Allen belt,
right,
which is the magnetic field around the Earth, and that's what protects us from solar radiation. So the solar radiation and that magnetism from the plasma hits the Van Allen belts and then goes around the Earth. And then right now, as we're recording this, the Earth has 2 Van Allen belts, because our Van Allen belt has separated into 2 sections right now. And they say, well, that can't happen because somebody's going to get fried. Well, guess what?
Why did we lose power in all these countries all of a sudden?
That's what happened to Puerto Rico. That's what happened to Madrid. That's what happened that's what those blackouts were.
They got hit with solar radiation to the point that it knocked out.
Plasma got through and it scorched their power grids.
Yep.
And 2 days ago, off the coast of New Zealand and Australia, in the ocean out there, it took the biggest hit that the Earth has seen in since humans have been on this planet. So there are buoys in the ocean that are completely useless right now because the solar radiation absolutely fried them.
Yep. So what was the website or the YouTube that we got a lot of this information off of? What was the, you gave it to me today.
So Suspicious Observer.
So Suspicious Observer on YouTube, if you check that out, he does basically a solar weather forecast every day.
Every day, right.
So go check that out. That'll tell you when the solar flares are coming and all this and that. And it talks about the poles and magnetic fields and all that kind of stuff.
I feel bad for him because he's not a what do they call it with the chicken with the sky is falling?
Oh,
Chicken Little. He's not the Chicken Little guy. He is like a person who is interested in the solar storms and sunspots and stuff, and now he is the Chicken Little because he's seen this happening and getting worse.
Right.
And he's one of the people that watches it. So he's like, oh man, this is bad. This is really, really bad. And he communicates with other scientists who are like, I've never seen anything like this. So we go to our media, and they're all talking about nonsense, and we're like,
why are you not covering this stuff?
Why is no one talking about that? A solar flare scorched the entire island of Puerto Rico and knocked the power out, and it made no news whatsoever.
Yep. I think it's a matter of if they keep us in the dark, they keep us in control.
Yeah.
Because they don't want mass hysteria.
Right. They don't want everybody to panic, basically.
Right. So.
And I would rather you had the foresight and information at your hands, at hand, so you can make decisions now for when that happens. You're not just freaking out, basically. You're not if you ever played Fallout and the first time you come out of the vault, there's a bunch of skeletons laying there.
Yeah.
We don't want you to be one of them skeletons laying outside of the vault like, let me in. All the government's like, who is that guy?
Which that's another rabbit hole, because I've been seeing a lot of videos now on the fact that the government has spent trillions of dollars, $7 trillion to be exact, to create underground bases.
Oh yeah.
So,
if you
the government's ready.
Look up the Boring Company and what they do.
Yep.
Like Elon Musk's other company, that's what they do. Is they build prefab tunnels underground. Underneath the Denver airport is an enormous city underneath there, and all they have to do is just flip the switch. People start landing. They go in the elevators down to the bunker, seal the little door shut, and See you, suckers.
welcome to Vault-Tec.
Right.
So
yeah, it's crazy.
So the exact trigger of why it happens is not fully understood, but it's likely due to the turbulence in the outer core.
Right.
And changes in the flow patterns of molten iron can disrupt the magnetic field. Instabilities of symmetry breaking the geodynamo. I want to say geodidium. So the geodynamo can initiate the reversal, and thermal compositional convection play a role. So basically the heating and the cooling, and so I mean the field becomes disorganized and becomes multipolar even, which is what you're saying. It's already splitting and moving. So that's the things that are coming. Now the frequency of the reversal itself, they're irregular. They're not periodic. The average frequency is about 200,000 to 300,000 years. But like I said, we're well overdue. The last one was 780,000 years ago. Right. Now some periods in history had frequent reversals, where others, like currently now, called superchronos, are long periods. So this is nothing new, and this actually falls in line with what Bob and I have said is we believe that the Earth was built and rebuilt and destroyed and rebuilt over and over again. Civilization's been wiped out, and then it comes back, and then it's wiped out, and it comes back. So I mean, there's times when it's had partial reversals. They're more common than a full reversal. And the Champ excursion occurred 41,000 years ago and lasted for 1,000 years. The reversal duration ranges from 1,000 to 10,000 years. And models suggest reversals are chaotic and stochastic processes. I'm out of it here.
They think that the reason why this period has taken longer is because our Earth's gravity captured the moon. And the moon, the extra gravity of the moon makes the cycle slow down. That's what they think. So the moon and the tides and its pull on the core makes our core more stable.
And you even bringing up the tides brings up one of my favorite science facts, that people think the tides move in and out, but it doesn't. What happens is, so you have the Earth and the moon is pulling on this end, and it pulls the water away from the middle, which causes a bulge on each side of the planet of water. And the planet actually spins within the water. So the tides don't actually go in and out. The planet just spins through the low spots and the high spots. And so the water doesn't actually go in and out.
The water always points at the moon.
And we slide around through it. So isn't that something? That's a wild rabbit hole there. So you learned something new today, guys. So so the Earth's magnetic field has actually weakened about 9% over the last 200 years. And anomalies like Southern Atlantic anomalies suggest field instability. Magnetic pole movements have accelerated in recent decades, which we've already discussed. And the polar drift may indicate internal changes in the core dynamics. Now, satellite measurements monitor the field strength, and polymagnetic studies help identify patterns from the past reversals. And like we said, the striations in the lava flow let them measure what the magnetic fields used to look like thousands, 100,000 years ago. So now the magnetic reversals often show increased secular variation. Asymmetry in the dipole may also indicate a transitional state. However, no current data confirms a reversal is underway.
Except that it does.
So, when we pull this information, it likes to tell us not to be afraid.
They always do that. And I can get behind that, because obviously the government doesn't want people not showing up for work, or not going to church or whatever. You know what I mean?
You ever see that video? I don't want to work today.
I'm not going to work. Why should I go into work and do my job when the whole world's going to end in a couple weeks? You know what I mean? Like, I can write it out. It'll be all right.
So the effects on let's see. Well, let's go a little different here. So let's talk about the atmospheric and climate effects. So little evidence link reversal directly to major climate change. but that is actually not right, because if the poles totally
melt,
change,
that's pretty severe.
Now, okay, so the way it works is the magnetic field is stronger at the poles, so that blocks out more of the solar radiation,
right.
Meaning that's going to be the new cold spot. Wherever the poles are going to be cold, simply because they block more of the radiation that warms the planet.
Right.
So at the equator, that's where it's weakest, that's where it's warmest. So if the poles shift, we're going to have the same thing. So, so the ozone layer depletion may occur from enhanced radiation. Right. So, and some hypotheses suggest increased cosmic ray flux could affect cloud formations. Slight atmospheric temperature shifts might be possible. Extreme temperature shifts. I love it. We pull this stuff from.
For some people, it will be quite extreme.
It will be quite extreme. We have ChatGPT pull data together for us, and unfortunately, it's like the Matrix. Where the translator works for the construct.
Right.
ChatGPT works for the construct. It doesn't want to make you feel not at ease. You know what I mean? It always gives you the fluffy version of it. It has good facts. It gives us good facts, but it always gives us the fluffy don't be worried version.
When I first got into this years ago, when I first started hardcore researching this rabbit hole, they always said that the magnetic field fluctuates all the time, and you won't even notice the difference if it moves. And then I started going down the rabbit hole of what would happen if it changed, and it says explicitly that no, the planet will turn. Right. So because the core moves, then eventually it's going to move to its new position, and then the Earth will right itself to make that magnetism match the sun and our rotation. So for people who are on a a ice pack in Antarctica, to be on the equator basically in a couple days, that's going to be a big change for them. You know what I'm saying?
Because the core is pulling on the outside at the same time. So it's going to be an interesting phenomenon, to say the least, and they're saying this could happen within the next 3 years. So, we actually pulled the Wikipedia. We have our ChatGPT stuff, which I'm actually pulling very few from it, because Bob's like a font of knowledge on this stuff. So
what it's actually talking about now is another thing that I wanted to get into.
The impact on technology.
Satellites operate off a geostationary orbit, right? So they're not actually staying in one place. They dip in closer to the Earth and then go back up again, and that's how they stay over like Texas, or how they stay over where they're sanctioned to, is by changing their attitude to match. So if the Earth turns and its trajectory doesn't, then those satellites are going to be a big demolition derby up in the sky, because there are some of them that are from like the 70s. And they
can't be reprogrammed.
They don't reprogram. They follow their course, and then they correct their course, and then they follow their course, because they're all ones and zeros.
And
then it's
a reported course correction.
And new weather satellites use image stabilization, and they use other GPS networks, and they are all linked together, and they make course corrections automatically by what their image is. So if their image moves, then they're going to course correct. But the older satellites won't. And there's space junk that are in space lanes, and it's just going to be a disaster for satellites. They're going to smash into each other. They're going to beach themselves. They're going to go out into space. It's going to be crazy for satellite communication.
The funny thing it brings up here is it says compasses won't be right. Well, yeah, they will be right, because they will point to magnetic north. They will still point to magnetic north, just magnetic north won't be north anymore. Navigation systems, anything that used any kind of, anything like that will be totally messed up.
You'll see a bunch of people with their old magnetic compass, and it'll have a big piece of red paint on it.
It says to the side. So, in all honesty, this is going to have to bring the world together. It really will, because there's not going to be any, countries trying to survive on their own with this, because everything we do in the world is kind of based on other countries.
Right.
And so we're going to have to come together and work through this when it does actually happen. So, I mean, there's going to be increased radiation exposure, to high altitude flight. Like Bob said, just anything navigational communication systems are going to be messed up. Like, this is going to be a big, big, big thing. So the effects on life and biology, most life forms are not directly affected by the magnetic reversal,
right?
Except the things that migrate.
Yeah.
So animals that migrate will actually may have a different migration path.
Yeah, they're going to have big problems.
And then birds, turtles, and bees actually use magnetic location. So that might mess with those, which snowball with the bees. If we have an issue with the bees make our food basically by pollinating the plants.
Right.
We run low on bees, we run low on food, and so on and so forth.
Most bees, I don't think would be, but I could see like Canada goose, things that migrate long distances.
Yeah.
If you're a Canada goose and you're going to fly north and you're in, let's say, South Carolina, and now you're flying east instead of north.
Right.
That's going to be a big problem for you in a couple hours.
So,
and it sure is wet.
As far as the radiation hitting us, at sea level there won't be much of a difference.
Right.
But depending upon where you are elsewhere on the planet or other altitudes, it's going to be a little different. And microbial life at the surface will, in certain places, will be exposed to more UV radiation, which will kill off a lot of the microbes.
Right.
So,
And they think that the ice pack, the polar ice packs were formed when there was more oxygen on our planet. So that blue ice that's in those ice packs, when that melts, it'll increase the oxygen level of the planet. And then when it refreezes around the new North Pole, South Pole, that will be less oxygen-rich water that's being captured there. So.
But there's also the plus on that. So when the oxygen gets released into the air, it'll have an effect on us, which then will generate more carbon dioxide, which will then cause the plants to go even more crazy, which is a good thing. We actually need that. Because
right.
If we had more plants, we'd have a lot more oxygen on the planet, and things would be a lot better. Just saying.
Phytoplankton.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reversals that are recorded in the volcanic rock and the sea floor basalt. And as magma cools, iron minerals align with the current magnetic field, and this creates the stripes that Bob was talking about earlier. And they can map the timing of those out to tell when it's happened. And sediment also preserves paleomagnetic signals in clay and silt particles. Fossil corals can carry indirect reversal signatures. So this is the fossil evidence of it happening in the past.
Right.
So I'm kind of rolling through this stuff here.
There was a lot of big words in that paragraph.
Yeah, a lot of big words that we just kind of went over. But it basically was saying the same thing. I mean, it's the same thing that Bob and I talked about.
We were talking about. So when the molten magma cools, it cools in striations towards where the magnetism is. Basically, that's what they're saying.
Oh, so the Earth's magnetic field is generated by movement in the outer core, and the outer core is a convecting, electrically conducting fluid. So it rotates faster than the mantle, right? And small changes in core flow can drastically change field behavior. And that's what we're talking about, why it's going to flip, because the changes. So the difference between a magnetic excursion, and that's what we have going on right now, is a magnetic excursion.
Right.
And that's the probability of what's going to come is a magnetic excursion. Rather than a full reversal flip,
right,
it's actually just going to move about halfway. That's considered an excursion. Now, it's going to weaken the magnetic field for a while. So we're going to get a lot more solar radiation hitting the planet. The field usually returns to its original orientation, but an excursion usually lasts less than 1,000 years. A full reversal could be 1,000 or more. Still, though, that we could be talking hundreds of years.
Oh yeah.
For it to be, in that situation where California's the new South Pole.
Right.
Yeah. So, the reversal timeline and the process, the magnetic field start to weaken, and as it starts to increase, the dipole starts breaking down into multiple poles, which Bob said it's already starting to do, and the poles migrate across latitude, sometimes to the equator. Now, the transitional phase may take anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 years, but the way it's going right now, it seems like it's going to be accelerated.
Right.
And eventually a new dipole structure forms with the reverse polarity. Now, the field strength returns to normal over time, and the poles stabilize near opposite locations. Transition timing varies with geodynamic conditions, and the full process is not instantaneous or catastrophic, but that's as far as on a planetary scale, but the effects it's going to have on our technology and our navigation and that kind of stuff will be instantaneous.
Yeah.
I mean, things are going to be wild. So the final outcome after the reversal would be the Earth magnetic field would remain intact but flipped.
Right. So
a new stable north and south magnetic pole configuration would be established. The magnetic field strength would fully recover. Technology would have to adapt to the new magnetic conditions. Life would continue with minor adaptations, especially, magnetic sensitive species, like Bob said, the bees, the turtles, anything that's flying long distances. The magnetic shielding will restabilize, but for a while there we will get a little crispy. So in the long term, though, the geodynamo it'll maintain its stability, and life will continue just in a different way. So the future implications and human preparedness, obviously we're monitoring this. This is being monitored all the time, by satellites and the prediction models. They're working on them now. The prediction model we saw, that Bob saw, that's one prediction model. It could be many things.
Right.
This is just one model. So who knows how it could actually turn out, but it is moving.
Right.
So just be aware, and you know how Bob and I work. If you've been here before, we want to open the can of worms. You dig in and pick a worm out yourself. Right. Get your own ideas in your head. So.
And then, the media will have you believe this will be no big deal. You know what I mean? And I kind of believe that too. However, it can be catastrophic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I would rather have the information out there so that people can understand, hey, this can be something that's really bad, or it could be nothing. You know what I mean? It could be in the middle, but for them to just go, it'll be nothing to worry about. We'll just, everything that points north will just point south. It's no big deal.
Right.
Or it couldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, it would open up a whole new field of, space weather forecasting.
Yeah.
Because as the magnetic field thins, then it'll be more important to know whether your area is going to be getting hit with solar winds that day.
Right.
So, there'd be times where you wouldn't even, they'd be like, don't go out of the house today,
Or they're going to sell metal roofs. That have some kind of resistance.
Radiation resistance, So, glad you guys came in today. We opened that rabbit hole up, and this is something that Bob likes to talk about. Is there anything you want to add?
I don't know. I would say start watching the Suspicious Observer on YouTube, because he is the main person who's speaking truth about it. Because when that blackout happened in Puerto Rico, nobody covered it. They were talking about how...
I saw more on TikTok than I did in media.
I saw one article on CNN talking about how a overload transformer blew up, and that caused the blackout. And nobody on that island believed that. They were like, "There's no." Everything went out at the exact same. Someone flipped the switch. It wasn't that it got overloaded, and it was that time of day or whatever.
Right.
The entire island went dark all at once. So, no. And he was the only person I saw that was saying, hey, this was a corona mass ejection. We were expecting it to hit, and then it did, and it was much worse than we thought it was going to be. And why was that? Because our magnetic shield isn't working like it's supposed to.
Yep.
And then, like I said, right now, as we're recording this, that we have 2 Van Allen belts on our planet. There's a gap in our Van Allen belts. So instead of having one great big Van Allen belt that goes all the way around the planet, deflecting all of this radiation from the sun, we have 2 thinner Van Allen belts that are rotating next to each other. So it's a wild time right now, you know. Especially if you're somebody like me who's been following this for a long time, and you've been telling people, like, hey, you know, the poles could flip at any minute, and they're like, ha, that'll never happen, you dummy, don't you know the Earth is flat? You know, you know, and I'm like, no, this is something people need to worry about, you know. So, not to fearmonger and not to get people, you know, to start digging a trench in their backyard or whatever, but I'm just saying it's something to pay attention to.
Yes. So for you guys that are coming in here to the TikTok live to watch us record the podcast, you know, I noticed you got a lot of new followers going on. If you guys could give me a follow too down here at the bottom. You know, we do put out separate content, but we also put out the same stuff. We're part of the same paranormal group.
Yep.
So, thank you everyone for joining us on TikTok and on YouTube. We want to talk about merch. Do you still got your T-shirt down here?
Yeah, I still got
them. All right. So
I haven't put them in the wash yet. So they're still
So here's the merch. We'll hold it in the middle so TikTok can see it. There we go. So if you want some Veritas Project merch, it is on Printify.
Yeah.
Got it right this week. Woohoo! Since we just switched. Teespring was horrible.
Yeah.
So Printify, good quality stuff. If you're interested, if you want to support us on Patreon, when you become a $5 member, you get a postcard every month. And we send those out to you. We sign them, write you a little note, send them out to you every month. They are made. Bob's wife is a graphic designer, and she makes all those postcards, so they're all unique postcards, and you can get those for a $5 Patreon member. Also, you can follow us on Discord, the Real Veritas Project on Discord, or is it just the Veritas Project?
I think
it's just the Veritas Project.
Yeah.
So search the Veritas Project on Discord. Also, we still have. Is the bag still down here?
Yeah.
Where'd it go?
I was going to bring the new one down.
Oh, okay. So you'll have a choice of this bag or another bag that just Bob picked up, the bigger one.
I got it's a leather bag too.
So we are having a contest for all those new people. Send us your ghost story, cryptid story, UFO story, any kind of weird story you had. Get as detailed as you can possibly get. We will make a podcast out of it. We will discuss it and, go over it because, Bob and I talk about everything.
Right.
So, what we're doing is after we get, a couple of few stories, the story that has the most views on YouTube, the podcast has the most views of your story. So it's not even us deciding, it is YouTube deciding. You will get a beginner paranormal investigation bag.
Yeah.
We'll throw a EMF detector, a spirit box, and a few other things, a blacklight flashlight, and there's a couple other things that we're going to throw in here. So if you want to win that,
one that I actually made myself.
Yep.
So that's all. That's as good a thing as you can ever get.
Yep. There you go. It's a Bob original.
Because I made it.
So yeah, when we become famous, you could say,
right,
I got this.
That'll be in a museum somewhere.
So, the second annual meet and greet at the Lemp Mansion, we still have half a room. The person that wants the other half of the room is tentative. So if you're interested, let us know. That is Monday, August 11th at the Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri. The other half of the room, it's literally its own room. I mean, it is its own room. It has its own bathroom and everything. Yeah. The half room, which is a queen size bed, that's the only difference between that room upstairs. It has a wall with a door in between, right? That locks. The only difference is every other bed in the house is a king size bed. That room, which is 2 rooms, has queen size beds. That's the only difference.
Yep.
It has their own bathroom and everything, and that's, I believe, $230. So if you're interested in coming to the second annual meet and greet, the people that came last year will tell you it's an absolute blast. We had a good time because once we get the keys at the Lemp Mansion at 3 in the afternoon, they leave.
Oh, yeah.
The Lemp Mansion is ours, and it's considered, depending on what list you see, it's either in the top 10 most haunted places in America. It is definitely always in the top 20.
It's always in the top 20, yeah.
So, and we had a whole lot of action going on last year in there. It was fantastic. And everybody had a good time. So
spirits there know us, too.
Yeah, they do.
They
set us by name on the spirit box when we were in there. Like, it recognized us and started saying our names. Because Bob and I both used to give tours in there.
So we've been in there for years and years. So they know us, which is kind of a weird thing to think.
Yeah, it's when the spirits know you. That's kind of wild. So let's see. We talked about Discord. We talked about the T-shirts. We talked about the postcards. Is there anything else? So if you do want to send us those stories, if you're watching down here on TikTok, you can either message Bob, the Veritas Project up here, or me, Investigator Todd, down there. Or if you're on YouTube, Bob is the Real Veritas Project at gmail.com.
Yep.
I'm investigator.todd.paranormal@gmail.com. And follow us on all the other social medias. Bob is RS Curtis 73 and the Veritas Project on everything. And I'm Investigator Todd on everything. And we're on everything. We're on Instagram, Facebook, you name it, we're on it. So once again, thank you guys for joining us. And I want to say congratulations again to Robin, who didn't know it was going to happen, who became a member of the Veritas Project tonight.
Yeah.
And thank you for modding for us, Robin. We appreciate everything you do. So...
Yay.
We do appreciate it. So thank you guys once again for joining us. And remember,
stay curious
and find the truth. And we'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
See ya.